Hi guys, is Sir Christopher Chope a saboteur or a hopeless optimist? Or perhaps he knows something that the rest of us don't? Here he was on BBC Newsnight, where he, unlike many other of his Tory colleagues, was actually calling for a general election. Now he says here that he doesn't believe that there would be a wipeout of the Conservative Party if an election were held today. Why? Well, if the Tories can put in place a good candidate, that person can face down Starmer and his gang and win elections. Well, what do you think?
You've just said you think there should be a general election. I mean, you know that will be wipeout for many of your colleagues who you earlier described as hyenas. Would that be just desserts for them?
No, I'm not. It wouldn't be wipeout. I think there will be...
Have you looked at the polls lately?
Well, I've looked at the polls, but of course those polls are based upon what's been happening over the last few weeks. If we had a general election called with a new Prime Minister at the end of next week, then I think the public would respect that new Prime Minister for deciding that you couldn't carry on in this economic crisis without giving the people the opportunity of having a fresh look at who they wish to govern this country. And I think if they were given the opportunity to do that, they would actually decide that it would be better to for a new Conservative government with a new Prime Minister to handle the economic crisis rather than to leave it to Starmer and his gang.
Okay.
So that's why I don't think a general election would be wipeout for Conservative MPs. I think it would be their best chance of a future.
Okay, that's really interesting. What I said at the beginning was, is he a saboteur? Or is he just a hopeless optimist? I don't think he's a stupid individual. I think he's a very clever man. And I think what he's doing here is, I think he wants to throw a lot of these politicians he sees as charlatans and career politicians. He wants to throw them under a bus. He's calling for a general election knowing that they will be thrown out. And perhaps he wants the party, maybe he realizes himself that he's, it's the end of his career and he's going and he just doesn't care. Or perhaps he wants the party to return to its roots, to move away from this populism and this UKIPism. Maybe this is what he wants. And he realizes, look, we need to have a general election, clean house, remove these people from it. We're going to lose seats, but we're going to get rid of the worst of our party. And then we can come back in the future with more moderate candidates, more moderate MPs. Maybe this is what his thinking is. Because I don't believe for a moment that he thinks that you just replace Liz Truss with somebody else, that they will win elections. There are a number of reasons why I say that. Because if you look at the polling, yes, is really bad for the Conservatives. One of the worst polls presented for them would result in the Conservatives having fewer seats than the SNP. Think about that for a moment. That's one of the worst polls, okay. Now, but we're still talking about a very serious hammering for the party, no matter which way you look at it. And you can't just replace the current leader with somebody and expect to be some sort of reset. Because what's happened as well is there are fewer and fewer people sitting on the fence. Many people who voted for the Conservatives in 2019 have, instead of switching to don't know, have switched directly to the Labour Party. So their support is now behind the Labour Party. To win those people back requires a lot of work. And I don't think there's a candidate who can achieve that. Because if you look at the current front runners, you have Rishi Sunak, who's popular with a lot of people. He's viewed very positively when it comes to the economy, but he can't connect with ordinary people. We saw the fiasco when he tried to put petrol in someone's car, pretending it was his car, tried to pay for things. These are small gaffes, but they demonstrate somebody who's disconnected from reality. And, during a cost of living crisis, he doesn't feel it. And we've seen him before. He doesn't understand what ordinary people are going through. And this cost of living crisis is going to get worse. So he's the wrong candidate. Who else do we have? Penny Mordaunt. I've covered her before, but we know very little about her. She comes across as very arrogant and not very polite, not a nice person, not a nice character to her. So I don't know if she's going to win people over. A bit like Liz Truss. Then there's Suella Braverman. Okay, that's running for the racist vote. Yeah, she has the racist vote there locked up, but you know, you need to expand that. You can't just rely on the racist to come out. And then there's Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson, who had most of these people in his cabinet. And those people resigned from his cabinet because Boris Johnson was a crook. Boris Johnson was incompetent. Boris Johnson was a liar, a charlatan. You know, to bring Boris Johnson back isn't going to result in victories. So I think what Christopher is doing here, and maybe I'm wrong, but my impression is that he's tired. He's looking at the current Conservative Party and deciding we don't deserve to be in power. What we need to do is clean house, have an election, lose as many seats as necessary, because the people who are going to lose the seats are generally the more extreme within the party and a lot of the new people. So those are going to be removed. The populists and the extreme are going to be removed. And what's going to be left are people like Christopher and maybe Simon Hoare or somebody like that. The more moderates. And then the Conservative Party, in their eyes, can be rebuilt from the ground up. Or maybe I'm wrong. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.